Men are quicker to forget their father's death than the loss of their fortune.
No one tells you this, but everyone thinks it. You are replaceable. Your effort, your sacrifice, your sleepless nights evaporate in the memory of others like cheap smoke. You spent your life believing that if you were constant, if you showed loyalty, if you stayed available, then no one would dare to despise you. And yet, what did you receive? Silence, forgetfulness, the cold certainty that your presence carries no weight. The deepest pain is not being heard. It is discovering that your existence can continue without leaving a trace, that your absence stops no one's world, that if you vanished tomorrow, many would go on with their lives as if nothing had happened. Today I bring you no comfort. I bring you a dagger, the truth that respect, worth, memory are not born from always being there. They are born from the void your absence provokes. The question is, what remains when you withdraw? Silence? Or an unbearable echo that forces others to remember who you were?
What you say is not new, though you dress it in modern names. In my time, too, this illusion existed. The ruler who believed that by being always near, always indulgent, he would be loved forever. He did not understand that familiarity kills reverence. I have seen entire courts forget their princes in a matter of weeks, as if they had never reigned. I have seen nobles take for granted the hand that fed them, and remember its name only when that hand was withdrawn. Man fears the void more than the dagger. And the prince who knows how to withdraw in time, who becomes inaccessible at certain moments, fixes his shadow in everyone's memory. It is not the abundance of your presence that imposes respect, but the threat of your disappearance.
No one admits it aloud, but the truth is there. You are expendable. Your sacrifice leaves no mark. Your loyalty stops no one. And when you disappear, the world keeps spinning as if your existence were background noise. Haven't you felt it? The emptiness of giving yourself completely and discovering that your absence shakes no one. The terror of being forgotten, of your life changing nothing in the memory of others. That is the most brutal blow. Not betrayal, but discovering that your presence was never indispensable.
In my era, princes lived with the same fear, to be replaced, ignored, forgotten. A ruler who was always available to his people, who opened his doors without restriction, who answered every plea, ended up reduced to a servant. Look at the Medici in Florence. When they were generous without measure, the city devoured them like daily bread, useful, but never remembered with reverence. When instead they disappeared from the stage, when they withdrew their hand, when they denied their presence, the whole city burned with rumors, merchants trembled, bankers wondered if their fortunes would survive. Power does not reside in what you give. It resides in the fear of what will happen if you stop being there. The ruler who exposes himself without mystery ends up replaced like a worn-out tool. But he who knows how to withdraw at the right moment becomes indispensable. For nothing terrifies more than the void of someone suddenly gone.
Today the wound wears a modern mask. You scroll through your feeds, your conversations, your relationships, and you realize your presence has become background noise. They seek you when they need to vent, but your voice is never the first they call to celebrate. They write to you when they're lonely, but not when they have choices. It's the curse of those always available, to be invisible. When people already know your reaction before speaking, you become a function, not a person. A free refuge, an inexhaustible spring, a candle burning in broad daylight. Useful, but ignored. And you know what's most brutal? Humans do not despise what they hate. They despise what they know they'll never lose.
I saw the same pattern myself, even without your screens and instant messages. A counselor always at the prince's disposal, always saying yes, ended up seen as just another servant. His voice carried no weight, for it was predictable. I remember Piero Soderini, lifelong gonfaloniere of Florence. He always tried to please, always sought consensus, and so no one feared him, no one respected him. His presence was abundant, but his absence provoked no void. Thus, when his fall came, not a single man lifted a finger to defend him. Power is not measured by how long you stay, but by what happens when you go. If your disappearance provokes no tremor, then you never had power. You were tolerated, not revered.
When you withdraw, you don't leave just an empty space. You leave a crack in the other's mind, a silence heavier than 1,000 screams. At first, nothing happens. They think you're just busy, that you'll soon reappear, that you're as predictable as ever. But as days pass and your voice does not come, the mind begins to devour itself. They search for clues in your last words, read between lines messages you never wrote, dig through your networks in desperation. Your absence becomes a slow poison that corrodes their certainty. The brain cannot stand the contradiction. He was always there, and now, where is he? That's where dissonance is born. And the most brutal thing is not that they miss you. It's that for the first time they are forced to look into the mirror of your silence. No excuses, no instant forgiveness, no comfort of your explanations. Only themselves confronted with what they did to drive you away.
In Florence, I saw it with my own eyes. When a prince kept silent, the city spoke for him. Rumors multiplied. Every silence was read as a threat. Every absence became a calculated act of power. When Cesare Borgia disappeared from court, no one slept peacefully. Mercenaries wondered if they still had employment. Allies feared they had fallen from grace. Enemies suspected vengeance in the shadows. The Duke's silence was worth more than 100 proclamations. That is what you don't understand until you see it. There is no blade sharper than uncertainty. Man fears more what he does not know than what stands before his eyes. Your absence is not emptiness. It is a mirror forcing the other to contemplate his own misery. And not everyone survives that vision.
Many hear these words and think they understand. They believe it's enough to disappear for a few days, to leave messages unanswered, to fake disinterest. And they confuse strategy with whim. But silence is not a game. Childish silence makes you a pathetic ghost. Calculated silence, instead, elevates you into a feared shadow. Absence only has power if born of self-respect, not desperation. It is not about fleeing in tears. It is about withdrawing with dignity. No explanations, no pleas, no spectacle. Your absence must leave a void that burns, not an anecdote that provokes laughter. And most fail because they cannot hold the silence. They speak too soon, yield to the first gesture, break the strategy, and return to their chains.
In my era, I saw this difference written in blood. A weak prince fled the city in secret when he lost support, and his absence was celebrated as the lifting of a burden. That retreat was weakness disguised as withdrawal. No one remembered him. No one respected him. Cesare Borgia, on the other hand, knew how to disappear from court so that his very shadow grew in everyone's mind. When he kept silent, his enemies multiplied rumors of conspiracy. When he withdrew, no one knew if he would return with a secret alliance or an army at his back. His absence was terror, not void. There lies the distinction. Useless absence erases your name. Strategic absence engraves it with iron in memory. The ruler who vanishes like a coward dies in oblivion. The one who withdraws with calculation is reborn as a specter impossible to ignore.
If you manage to sustain absence, something changes first in you. The hunger for validation dies. The void that once suffocated you becomes a silent throne. But that power has a price. When you learn to disappear, you not only punish others, you also separate from your former self, the one who begged for crumbs, who mistook kindness for servitude, who crawled for approval. Killing him hurts, for he was a part of you. But only by burying that slave can you crown the sovereign. Many cannot endure the metamorphosis. They feel loneliness as poison. They confuse respect with constant company and run back to their chains. But the few who pass through that darkness emerge with an authority impossible to take away. For when you no longer fear being alone, no one can use you as currency. When you no longer beg for attention, the world bows before your silence.
What you describe is the essence of true power. In my day, I saw it embodied in a man many called cruel, Ferdinand of Aragon. He clung to no one. He did not need to be loved to rule. He knew how to withdraw, how to keep silent, and how to let others burn in the uncertainty of his absence. Dependent men ruin themselves seeking the people's affection. They give too much, exhaust themselves in explanations, and in the end are consumed like dry wood. But the prince who masters absence does not beg. He does not run after ungrateful subjects, nor capricious allies. He stands firm, even if all abandon him. And then something curious happens. Those who despised him crawl back, because the void his retreat leaves is more unbearable than his severity. He who endures being alone rules over all. He who needs company becomes the slave of anyone.
Carve this into your flesh. The opposite of being forgotten is not being loved. It is being impossible to ignore. And only those who know how to withdraw reach that category. But there is also the other extreme. The one who never learns to be absent. The one who spends his life being useful, being available, being everyone's shoulder. That man dies twice. First, when he empties himself without anyone noticing. Second, when they bury him and no one remembers. Do you want the greatest cruelty? That those who consumed your energy the most don't even attend your funeral?
I saw that too. Hundreds of counselors, soldiers, courtiers vanished, and no one spoke their names the next day. They were necessary in life, but their absence left no shadow. True power does not consist in surviving death, but in haunting with your memory even after you have disappeared. A ruler who leaves a mark in men's memory continues ruling even from the grave.
Many speak of absence as if it were a quick technique, but few understand the true sacrifice it demands. Because holding silence is not a momentary act, it is an internal war. The impulse to answer throbs in your hands. The need to explain burns in your throat. The fear of losing them forever bites at your stomach. And yet, you remain still, like a soldier standing watch in the storm, not moving, not yielding, while the others tear themselves apart with their own demons. That is the power of absence. It breaks you first, to then break everyone else.
In my time, a ruler's strength was not measured in battle, but in his capacity for self-restraint. A prince who acted impulsively, who responded to every insult, who rushed to prove his courage, ended up devoured by his anxiety. The shrewdest knew how to wait. They kept silent while the city burned with rumors. And when at last they spoke, their words weighed like molten iron. The secret of absence is discipline. It is not enough to withdraw. You must resist the temptation to return too soon.
He who masters absence does not only gain respect. He gains something more lethal, more lasting, more profound. He gains mark. Do you know what it means to leave a mark? It is not being remembered as a pleasant memory. It is becoming a ghost in others' minds, a wound that never fully heals, an echo that rises in the solitude of night when they believe they have forgotten you. Your face may fade from their eyes, your voice may vanish from their ears, but your silence lives on in their memory, like a low note that never quite dies away. When someone learns to fear your absence, they also learn to value your presence. But there is a second, darker effect. They begin to obsess over you, to imagine what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you're doing far from them. Your shadow walks through their thoughts, and they no longer need your physical presence, because your power has left your body and settled in their mind. That is the point at which you are no longer a person. You are a symbol, and a symbol cannot be killed, cannot be forgotten, cannot be replaced. He who masters absence becomes a myth. And the terrible thing about myths is that they do not depend on truth, but on the imagination of those who carry them inside. Your absence is not a void. It is an altar, and each one, even those who hated you, is forced to light a candle upon it.
You speak true, and in my time I saw it repeated in every Italian court. The man who knows how to withdraw with calculation, whose absence is not neglect but strategy, becomes more than a man. He becomes legend, even in life. Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, was one of those men. His enemies called him a monster. His allies treated him with caution, and his own children feared him as much as they revered him. When he died, his body rotted quickly, but his name kept ruling Rome like a specter. No one dared to challenge Cesare, his son, because though the father no longer breathed, his shadow still loomed over the city. The eternal mark is not achieved with speeches, nor with acts of kindness. It is achieved with the absence that leaves questions unanswered. What would he have done if he still lived? What would he think of this? What would he do if he returned? That is the torment the powerful prince imprints on everyone's mind. I myself learned it in my exile. When I left Florence, they thought I had no voice. But in my silence, my writings became daggers. My absences spoke louder than my presences. And so, even far from power, I became a specter who even now, centuries later, speaks to you and to all who read me. That is what the weak do not understand. True power does not die when you close your eyes. It remains in memory, in fear, in the mark your absence carved into the consciousness of those who knew you. To be loved fades. To be feared dissolves. But to be impossible to ignore. That is what makes you eternal.
Now you've seen it. Man's greatest enemy is not betrayal, not even death. It is oblivion. To die in silence, as if your life had been a wrong note, an echo fading without anyone mourning it. That is what terrifies even the bravest. He who does not master absence lives like a beggar, gives everything, receives nothing, and in the end leaves no trace in any heart. His name is not remembered at the table. His face does not appear in memory. His departure shakes no one. He dies once in the flesh, and again, more cruelly, in the consciousness of others. But he who sustains absence with coldness, who keeps silent when silence is needed, who withdraws with dignity, leaves something heavier than his presence. He leaves a mark, an unbearable void that forces all to remember, not because they want to, but because they cannot help it. And there lies the truth no one tells you. It does not matter if you